Willow and I are childhood sweethearts. We grew up playing together. But her boyfriend couldn't stand that. He said I was just a male best friend pretending to be just friends, while secretly flirting with her. Because of that, the two of them often ended up fighting, breaking up and getting back together again in the usual drama, where she runs away and he chases after her. Until one party, when I once again clarified that Willow and I were purely friends and that I already had a girlfriend. That's when Willow suddenly threw her chopsticks down. Chapter 1. Willow and Makoto got back together again. When I heard the news, I felt nothing at all. David couldn't wait to message me. This time they were apart for a full 3 months, a record. I heard that after their fight, Willow went abroad, and Makoto actually chased her overseas to bring her back. They've been dating for 2 years and have broken up at least 10 times. Don't they ever get tired? I smiled but didn't reply. He kept messaging. I bet Makoto's gonna brag in the group chat again and invite everyone to dinner. You coming? I sent a polite refusal emoji. Then replied, Nah, I'm busy practicing. I've got a competition next month. He replied, Alright, I'm still going to check out that dramatic on and off couple. I'll tell you if there's any fresh gossip. I typed back, Sure. After sending that message, I went back to practicing the piano. About half an hour later, I picked up my phone again and saw another message from David. He seemed to hesitate before asking, By the way, do you know why they fought this time? I replied, No idea. David texted back almost instantly. I heard it's because Makoto found out Willow's phone password was both of your birthdays. Chapter 2. On Friday, our long silent friend group chat suddenly came alive. No surprise. It was Makoto announcing that he and his girlfriend had gotten back together again and that he was treating everyone to dinner at the usual place. Everyone started joking and teasing. Already used to it, but congrats anyway. Makoto, you're slowing down. Took you that long this time. When will I finally get to eat your last reconciliation dinner? I was typing to decline the invitation when Makoto suddenly tagged me directly. Gio, you have to come. I replied, Sorry, I've been busy lately. Makoto sent another message. What? Not giving me any face? It's just dinner. Then he added, I know I've misunderstood your relationship with Willow before, and I probably caused you a lot of trouble. I just want to apologize in person. Can you give me that chance? And then silence. No one in the group said anything after that. I stared at my phone, suddenly feeling irritated. A few seconds later, I typed back, Alright. Chapter 3. When I arrived, the private room was already lively. As I pushed open the door, the air went silent for a moment. Sitting at the main seat, Willow looked at me, and her once frowning brows finally relaxed a little. She gave a cold snort and said, What took you so long? Then she reached out, moved her bag off the seat next to her, patted the spot and said, Come sit here. Makoto's expression stiffened, but he still smiled and wrapped an arm around Willow's shoulder, clearly marking his territory. He said, Gio, you finally made it. We've been waiting for you. I nodded and said, Sorry, traffic was bad. While I spoke, Willow's eyes never left me. I pretended not to notice and turned to the corner where David was waving at me. As soon as I sat down, Makoto came over holding a glass of wine. He said, George, I'm really glad you could make it. I used to misunderstand your relationship with Willow, and because of that, she and I argued a lot. We must have made quite a joke out of ourselves in front of everyone. So I owe you an apology. I know it must have caused you some trouble. I just want to say sorry, and I hope you don't hold it against me. Makoto stood beside me, looking down with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He went on, But that's all in the past now. Willow and I have talked things through honestly. The misunderstandings are cleared up. Even though you two grew up together, she only sees you as a brother figure, nothing more. And I'm sure you've always treated her like a little sister too, right? The once lively room fell silent again. Everyone stared at their glasses, pretending to be invisible. Willow was still staring straight at me, as if waiting for my answer. David frowned, about to speak, but I stopped him with a gesture. Then I picked up my glass, stood up, and met Makoto's gaze head-on. I smiled and said, "It's good to clear things up. I accept your apology." Then I added, "Willow's right, we really are just ordinary neighbors. Don't misunderstand again. It only hurts feelings." I raised my glass slightly toward him and said, "Wish you two everlasting happiness." The moment I finished speaking, there was a sharp clack. Willow's face, cold, had thrown her chopsticks onto the table. Her eyes were filled with resentment, but she still held back her emotions and said, "You have a bad stomach. Don't drink anymore." Makoto's face darkened instantly, his fingers whitening around the glass. Because that line, that was said to me. Chapter 4. Willow and I met when we were 8 years old. Our families lived next door to each other. When we were kids, she was like my little shadow. During family dinners, she'd look up at me with hopeful eyes and say, "When I grow up, my mom said she'll marry me to you." In elementary school, when I started learning violin, Willow would always cover her ears in the next room and scream, "George, are you sawing wood or playing music?" In middle school, I used to help Willow with her homework. Watching her nod over and over, I asked, "Do you understand now?" She replied, "Not a single word." Later, when my parents died in a car accident, it was Willow who held my hand and kept saying, "George, I'll stay with you forever." We were the kind of childhood sweethearts everyone envied, part of nearly every important moment in each other's lives. And I really thought she would stay with me forever, just like she said. Until one day, a new student joined our training class. Willow started mentioning another name around me all the time. With a soft smile, she said, "George, don't you think that Makoto kind of reminds you of yourself?" I asked, "In what way?" She tilted her head. "His violin sounds just as terrible as yours used to." I was speechless. Then she said, "George, that Makoto is so interesting. Can you help me get his contact info?" And later she said, "George, I'm dating Makoto now." Chapter 5. The private room fell completely silent. Other than David, I barely knew anyone there. I was either in class or busy practicing the piano most of the time, so I didn't hang out with them much. We were hardly close. Most of them were friends of Willow and Makoto, much more familiar with each other than with me. Willow's seemingly caring remark made everyone exchange glances, each with a different expression. Some even began looking at me with contempt, as if I really were that male best friend pretending to be just friends, while secretly flirting. David looked like he was about to flip the table, but I held him down, lifted my head, and drained the glass of wine in one go. I smiled politely but distantly and said, "It's just a bit of alcohol. No big deal." Willow's eyes grew even more resentful. She walked over, clearly annoyed, reaching out to grab the glass from my hand. She scolded, "George, you never learn, do you? Last time you ended up in the hospital with stomach cramps. Did you already forget? Didn't I tell you not to drink? You treat everything I say like background noise. Fine, drink yourself to death if that's what you want." Her words, the kind that anyone could easily misinterpret, made anger rise in me for no reason. I raised a hand to cut her off and said coldly, "Can you stop talking nonsense? It's none of your business." Willow opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, the door to the private room suddenly swung open. Chapter 6. A tall woman in an ivory trench coat stood at the doorway. Her elegant figure and calm poise immediately drew everyone's attention. Her cool, sharp eyes carried a hint of chill as she surveyed the room. Her gaze finally stopped on me for 2 seconds before moving away. The tense atmosphere broke in an instant. Willow spoke up. "Anna?" She sounded surprised. "Didn't you say you didn't have time today? Why did you come after all?" Anna took a few graceful steps into the room and sat down naturally in the seat directly across from me. She said, "Just happened to have a meeting nearby." Someone asked, "Did you meet the person? Why didn't they come with you?" Anna curved her lips slightly, her eyes glancing toward me almost imperceptibly. She said, "No rush." My heart skipped a beat. I looked down awkwardly, suddenly feeling guilty. Chapter 7. Perfect. Now everyone's here. Makoto suddenly said, breaking the silence. He pulled Willow back to her seat, lifted his glass again, and said, "It's rare for everyone to gather together like this. Let's have a toast. Oh wait, I almost forgot he can't drink because of his stomach." He smiled apologetically, then widened his eyes as if something had just come to mind. He said, "George, how about I introduce you to a girlfriend? Seriously, you spend every day buried in music and never do anything else. You should find a girlfriend to keep you in line. That way Willow won't have to worry about you all the time, right?" He stared at me directly, his eyes filled with thinly veiled irritation. Everyone could hear the sarcasm behind his words. In the quiet that followed, I looked up at Anna, who sat beside Willow, staring blankly at her phone. I said, "No need." Then, with a faint smile, added, "I already have a girlfriend." The words had barely left my mouth when a sharp crash rang out. The glass of water beside Willow shattered on the floor. Shards flew out, and a sharp piece sliced across her ankle. Blood began to flow instantly. "George." Willow's voice was tight with anger, as she gritted her teeth and demanded, "What did you just say?" Chapter 8. Makoto clenched his jaw but still called the waiter to bring the first aid kit. Willow, as if she couldn't feel the pain, kept her eyes locked firmly on me. She bit her lip and said, "Say that again." Word by word, I repeated, "I said I already have a girlfriend." Someone scoffed. "Yeah, right?" Another person chimed in. "Exactly. Everyone knows you've always had a thing for Willow." The next second someone added, "George, come on. Why bother making up a fake girlfriend just to piss Willow off?" People exchanged knowing looks as if everything suddenly made sense. Willow's defiant expression softened slightly. She gave a short laugh, rolled her eyes, and said, "Childish, seriously. As if I'd get mad over something like that." I rubbed my forehead, helpless, pinched the bridge of my nose, and said, "Believe it or not, but by finishing this drink tonight, I'm saying that all the past misunderstandings are over. From now on, I don't want to hear about any more breakups or fights caused by rumors involving me." I said firmly, "I don't want to be, and I'm not interested in being part of your little drama play." When I finished, I stood up to leave. As I reached the door, something crossed my mind, and I stopped, turning back. I said, "Anna, I've been drinking. Could you drive me home tonight?" The room erupted with gasps. Everyone stared at me in disbelief. Willow turned sharply, her voice trembling. "George, who did you just call?" The woman sitting next to her smiled slowly, stood up, and walked toward me. With a soft grin, she said, "It's no trouble." Willow tried to follow, but Makoto grabbed her arm. Her voice shook as she said, "George, don't you dare walk away." I didn't look back. I turned and left the private room. Chapter 9. The car felt a little warm. I sat silently in the passenger seat, unsure what to say. My phone kept vibrating. It was Willow calling over and over. Annoyed, I switched it to silent mode. Anna leaned slightly toward me, narrowing her eyes as she studied my face. She was close enough for the faint scent of citrus to brush past my nose. After a moment later, she spoke, her soft voice carrying a hint of reproach. "How many drinks did you have today?" I instantly realized what she meant and shook my head. "Not much, just 2 small glasses. Nothing serious." She nodded and started the car. The cool night breeze slipped through the window, brushing away the heat on my face. Chapter 10. The first time I heard the name Anna, I imagined someone gentle and delicate, the kind of person whose presence felt soft. But after meeting her a few times, I realized I was completely wrong. She was quiet and distant, with an air of cold indifference that kept everyone at arm's length. At every gathering, she either didn't show up at all or only stayed long enough to make an appearance before leaving. Willow once said Anna was exceptional. Born with a silver spoon, gifted in every way, and had won so many awards, both at home and abroad, that she'd lost count. I never quite understood how someone like her, a woman like a flower on a high, unreachable mountain, could be best friends with Willow. From high school through college, Anna and I had almost no interaction. But then, something unexpected happened last month. Chapter 11. The violin club had organized a dinner, which normally just meant a few polite drinks. But at that time, I was under a lot of pressure and couldn't hold back. I drank more than usual and too fast. Before long, I felt a sharp cramp twisting in my stomach. My clubmates panicked when they saw me go pale and immediately tried to drag me to the hospital. Just as we stepped out of the restaurant, we ran into Anna, who happened to be getting out of her car. Without a word, she came over and helped me into her car. To be honest, the stomach cramps didn't last long that night. They eased up pretty quickly. What really made it a disaster was that, out of nowhere, I got drunk and started acting out. I grabbed Anna's face and kissed her 3 times hard. And after that, I even smacked my lips and muttered, "Tastes pretty good." The worst part was that when I sobered up, I remembered every second of it. I nearly got down on my knees to apologize to Anna, swearing I'd make it up to her somehow. Anna looked at me with a faint smile in her eyes and asked, "How are you going to make it up to me?" My brain completely froze and I blurted out, "Then, maybe you can kiss me 3 times too." She replied, "You wish." Since she wouldn't accept that kind of equal compensation, it probably meant I owed her money. But my finances were tight at the time, so I said, "Can you give me a little time to think about it?" She said, "Sure." Chapter 12. After that day, I started running into Anna everywhere. At the library, at the stadium, in restaurants, even when I was practicing piano, I'd sometimes see her passing by the window outside. I knew she was there to collect her debt. By the 10th time, she sat down across from me while I was eating lunch. Couldn't hold back anymore. I said, "Are you in a hurry or something?" Then added, "I told you, I haven't figured it out yet." She gave a cold snort and said with irritation, "So what? You're not planning to take responsibility for me anymore." Chapter 13. Lost in thought, I didn't even notice we'd already arrived home. I took a deep breath, pulled out my keys, and slowly unlocked the door. Anna said, "Here are the car keys. I'll head out then." I said, "Yeah." She looked at me for a moment, noticed I wasn't closing the door, and tilted her head slightly. "Do you have something else to say?" I nodded. "Yeah." She looked at me encouragingly. "Go on." I swallowed, trying to organize my words. "Yeah?" She frowned. "Are you going to talk or not?" I was speechless. Finally, I looked at her seriously, as if I'd made up my mind. I said, "Anna?" She replied, I hesitated. "Well?" Seeing the murderous look in her eyes, I hurriedly said, "The thing I said earlier, about already having a girlfriend, it's fake." She said, "I know." I clenched my jaw. But it can become real." Anna froze for a second, then let out a soft laugh, her expression suddenly gentler. She asked knowingly, "What do you mean?" I said, "I want to take responsibility. Will you be my girlfriend?" My palms were sweating. Before she could answer, I quickly added, "No need to rush. You can think about it. I can wait." Then I said, "Goodbye. Good night." And with that, I slammed the door shut with a loud bang. My heart was pounding like crazy. Leaning back against the door, I exhaled a long breath. The lights were still off. The room was pitch dark. Suddenly, my phone screen lit up. It was a call from Anna. Wasn't she just outside the door? Confused, I still answered. Her voice was low, slightly hoarse, like she was holding something back. She said, "Open the door. I want to kiss you. Right now." Chapter 14. The moment I opened the door, Anna threw herself straight into my arms and in the process closed it behind us. A second later, she wrapped her arms around my neck, stood on tiptoe, and kissed me. The kiss came with such force and urgency that in an instant it wiped every trace of reason from my head. I caught her by the wrists and gently pushed her against the door, responding with the same intensity. My mind was in complete chaos. I didn't even understand how we had gotten to that point. But something inside me seemed to awaken, and a surge of desire and possession coursed through my body. I deepened the kiss clumsily, devouring the little air left between us. Anna pressed her hands against my shoulders, trying to catch her breath. "Goo, George," she murmured between gasps. It was then that, without realizing my strength, my teeth grazed her lips, and I heard her let out a faint whimper of pain. I stopped immediately. Our lips parted, but I kept holding her tightly, her body still trembling in my arms. In the silent darkness, our foreheads touched. We breathed heavily, sharing the same air. We stayed like that for a few seconds until I felt her gaze wandering across my face again and again. I raised my hand and brushed her lips with my fingertips, right where I had accidentally bitten her. "Does it hurt?" I asked softly. She hesitated for a moment, pressed her lips together, and shook her head. "No, it's fine." The air between us grew subtly awkward. I hesitated before asking, "Anna, don't you think this is going a bit too fast?" She was silent for a few seconds, then finally nodded with a faint murmur. "Yes, a little." Then, I began to say. In my head, I imagined she would say goodbye gracefully, and everything would naturally move toward the starting of a relationship. But instead, Anna leaned in again and whispered beside my ear, "I've rested." I managed to stammer. The citrus scent of her perfume surrounded me as she leaned toward me again. Her voice trembled slightly, still charged with restrained desire. Then, "Let's continue." And before I could respond, her lips found mine again. She was so polite. She even warned me before continuing. This time, the kiss was different. Softer, without the urgency or domination from before. Just tenderness and care. One of my hands held her by the waist, the other caressed her face. The light kisses deepened gradually, intertwining in a slow, silent dance. Anna closed her eyes and clung to my shoulders. We let impulse and emotion slowly envelop us. The screen of my phone kept lighting up again and again. Calls and messages from Willow, non-stop. Ignoring them, I played with the tip of Anna's tongue, nibbling gently, then lifted her in my arms and carried her to the sofa under the moonlight. During that endless kiss, I realized that, in a way, Anna truly lived up to her name. Delicate, fragile, almost impossible to resist. Her body sank into the sofa, and she looked at me with eyes that shimmered like silk. But just when we were about to cross a line, she placed her hand on my chest, and taking advantage of the pause to breathe, pulled away slightly. "George, stop," she whispered. I froze, surprised, realizing I might have gone too far. Before I could apologize, she, nervous at my silence, murmured uncertainly, "Don't hate me, please." I looked at her, puzzled. I never would have imagined that a woman like Anna, so cold, so distant, could show such genuine vulnerability. She lowered her gaze and said, "I'm just tired, and I'm not ready yet." I replied, "I don't hate you." I lowered my voice slightly, ashamed. I was the one who crossed the line. Anna smiled faintly. She rested her forehead against my neck, and her warm breath brushed my skin. She asked quietly, "What are you going to do tomorrow?" I thought for a moment and answered, "In the morning, I'll practice piano. In the afternoon, work on my thesis." She said, "Then, can we see each other?" "Of course," I replied. "Shall we have a meal together?" "Lunch?" I asked. She smiled. "All 3 meals." I let out a soft laugh. "All right." Chapter 15. The next morning, as soon as I arrived at the practice classroom building, I saw Willow sitting in front of the door. She was wearing the same dress from the night before. Her face looked pale and exhausted, with dark circles so deep it seemed she hadn't slept at all. The moment she saw me, she jumped to her feet. "George!" she exclaimed. "I've been calling you all night. Why didn't you answer?" I brushed her hand away when she tried to grab me. "Sorry," I replied calmly. "I didn't check my phone last night." Willow's eyes filled with tears, and her voice trembled as if she were about to cry. "You didn't check your phone? Then what were you doing? Why did you leave with Anna last night? Since when do you know her? And why did you move without telling me?" "I went to look for you, and your neighbors said you'd already moved out." "What does that mean, George?" Her barrage of questions began to irritate me. What does that have to do with you? I asked, frowning. How can it not have anything to do with me? She shot back, her voice breaking. She bit her lip and said, George, are you doing all this just to upset me? Are you crazy? I replied, completely baffled. Willow raised her voice. George, after all these years, who knows you better than I do? I know Makoto embarrassed you in front of everyone yesterday, and that you're angry. I'm sorry on his behalf. I won't let him bother you again. Her expression softened, lips quivering in a pleading pout. But promise me something, she said. Stay away from Anna, and don't ignore my calls again. Don't try to use other women to provoke me. I couldn't help but laugh, more out of disbelief than amusement. Willow, are you sick or what? I said, staring at her in disbelief. What makes you think you can tell me what to do? What exactly are we? Neighbors? Friends? Or the little girl who used to follow me everywhere? I added impatiently. You have no right to tell me how to live. Willow frowned. George, we grew up together. After all these years, how can you say that? I cut her off. Yes, we grew up together. But that's all. Her face froze in shock. I took a step back, putting more distance between us. Willow, admit it, I said calmly. We've both changed. You have your own choices and I have my life. From now on, please stop playing both sides and stay out of mine. Willow clenched her fists and shook her head. No, she murmured stubbornly. I haven't changed. We haven't changed. I sighed, exhausted. I didn't feel like arguing anymore. I moved because my old lease expired, I said. I don't see the need to give you my new address. And about Anna, I paused before continuing. I have no reason to stay away from her, because she's my girlfriend. Willow shuddered. What did you say? She asked in disbelief. What did you say? Another voice echoed at the same time. It was David, who suddenly appeared and clapped me on the shoulder. So you've got a girlfriend now, George. And you didn't even tell me? I smiled awkwardly and said, as we walked into the classroom, I'll explain later. Willow, however, grabbed my sleeve tightly. I yanked my arm free. Don't touch me, I warned. I'm telling you for the last time. She didn't seem to hear me, her reddened eyes trembling with barely contained anger. George, are you serious? She asked, her voice breaking. Before I could reply, David cut in bluntly. Come on, Willow, that's enough. You've got a boyfriend, so why are you still chasing George? You argued with Makoto yesterday and vanished all night. He's been looking for you for hours, thinking you left the country again. Do him a favor and let him know you're still here, or the poor guy's going to chase you to the ends of the earth. And with that, David and I walked into the practice classroom without looking back. Chapter 16. I explained everything to David from start to finish. After listening, he let out a long sigh of relief. Well, that's a relief. For a while, I really thought you still couldn't get over that trashy girl Willow. I shook my head and smiled, feeling completely at ease. I got over her a long time ago, David continued. No wonder you suddenly left with Anna last night. Everyone was stunned. I frowned slightly. Was it really that surprising? He replied, maybe not for others, but we're talking about Anna. Sure, in our circle, everyone comes from a decent family, but compared to Anna, none of us even come close. David clicked his tongue. In a novel, a girl like her would be the heiress of a powerful family, the kind we'd have to call the princess of the capital circle. I never understood why someone like her would even bother to mix with us nobodies. But now, I think I'm starting to get it. I sighed helplessly. Dude, your imagination is going way off track. David looked unconvinced. You don't believe me? Then listen to my reasoning. Every time we have a gathering, Anna never shows up, unless you're there. She skipped her own graduation ceremony, yet she's never missed one of your competitions. Even the best of friends wouldn't go that far, would they? David's eyes widened, goosebumps rising all over his arms. He went on. The more I think about it, the creepier it gets. We can barely get a glimpse of her most days, yet you somehow run into her all the time. Remember that time you had that stomach cramp? She just happened to be outside the restaurant and happened to have a cab ready. Looking back, all the clues were there. The more David analyzed, the more excited he became. He squinted his eyes, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Anna's probably been secretly in love with you for years. I was so stunned, I couldn't speak for a long moment. Finally, I said flatly, "Come on, man, don't be ridiculous. Anna secretly in love with me? That's absurd. It's all just coincidence." He waved dismissively. There's no such thing as that many coincidences in the world. For some reason, his words made me think of last night. A small flicker of doubt stirred in my chest. "But she doesn't seem like the type to have a secret crush," I said quietly. David shook his head and replied with mock gravity, "Never judge a book by its cover, my friend. Still waters run deep. Ever heard of contrast? Of a Yandra? You're too young. You'll regret it when she locks you in her basement and drains you dry." "Ah, my poor son, doomed already." I groaned. "You really need to stop reading so many twisted novels." Chapter 17. Ever since learning that Anna might secretly be in love with me, I haven't been able to stop paying attention to her every move these past few days. It's as if she knows everything about me. My tastes, my habits, even my fascination with the stars, something I've never mentioned to anyone. Yet she's perfectly aware. Anna is gentle and caring. When we're alone, she always clings to me, sometimes refusing to let go, sometimes interrupting serious conversations just to demand a kiss. It's like a kitten asking its owner to pet it. Her dependence and insecurity are a sharp contrast to her elegant, noble demeanor. Every time I finish my work and turn around, she's there. She waves at me, standing in the soft half-light where shadows and sunlight blend. The wind stirs, and her gaze carries emotions I can't quite decipher. Something like suppressed longing, something like restrained affection. She smiles faintly at me, as if to say, "I've been waiting for you for a very, very long time." Chapter 18. David told me that Willow had been spending her nights drinking at bars lately. Whenever she got drunk, she would start calling me over and over again. On the other end of the line, she always seemed lost in memories, talking endlessly about the past. She'd bring up the rose garden we used to pass by after school. She'd talk about how we once spent our pocket money to buy canned food for the stray kitten at the school gate. And she'd even mention the time she cried after being scolded by a teacher, and how I, trying to defend her, secretly put chili powder in that teacher's thermos. I listened half asleep, barely able to keep my eyes open. Meanwhile, Anna was cleaning my ears and gently took my phone from me. She said, "He's asleep. I'll talk with you instead." Willow fell silent. Then she hung up. But she didn't stop. She kept sending me messages relentlessly. She asked why I was with Anna, claimed I didn't really know her, told me to break up with her. I finally lost my patience and blocked her on every platform. Things were quiet for a few days until Aunt Lou called me. Aunt Lou is Willow's mother. After my parents died in a car accident, she had treated me with genuine kindness, almost like I was her own son. Over the phone, she said Willow hadn't been in a good emotional state lately and asked if she might be having problems with her boyfriend. I didn't know what to say, so I simply replied, "Maybe." Her tone was tinged with melancholy as she chatted with me for a while about daily life. And in the end, she invited me to come home for dinner over the weekend. I hesitated for a moment but eventually said yes. Chapter 19. When I went back that day, Willow was there too. She was wearing the white dress I had given her when we graduated from high school. Her expression looked weary and fragile. The moment the door opened and she saw me, a faint light of hope flickered in her eyes. "You came back," she said softly. I nodded and stepped inside. Aunt Lou looked me up and down, saying I'd lost weight, then added that she had asked the chef to make my favorite dish, sweet and sour ribs. The smell of food drifted from the kitchen, and the TV in the living room was playing a lively soap opera. Willow sat beside Aunt Lou quietly, watching us talk, with a faint smile. For a moment, she looked like she had returned to our high school days, back to one of those ordinary yet happy evenings. After dinner, Aunt Lou went to her study to work. Willow stopped me, her voice soft, almost pleading. "George," she said, "can we talk?" Chapter 20. She asked, "When did you and Anna start dating?" I replied, "That night after the dinner party." A flicker of surprise flashed across Willow's face. I quickly added, "Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not with her to spite you." Willow's brief spark of life faded. Her expression dulled again. She asked quietly, "Do you like her?" I thought of Anna clinging to my arm when I left the house that morning, rubbing her head against me and refusing to let go. I couldn't help but smile. "Yeah." Willow was silent for a moment, then gave a small bitter laugh. She said, "Do you even know her?" I said, meeting her gaze evenly, "I know you, but we still didn't end up together, did we?" Her breath hitched. She clenched her fists and turned her head away, refusing to look at me. She said, "Believe it or not, Anna's in love with someone else. I've seen it. Her phone wallpaper is a man's silhouette. She's had that picture for years." I nodded. "Oh, I see. What?" Willow turned to me in disbelief. "George, what kind of reaction is that?" "I'm telling you, she's got someone she likes. Don't you understand?" I said calmly, "That's between Anna and me. It has nothing to do with you." I paused, then continued, "Willow, I'll say this one last time. The past is over. I hope you live your life well and stop interfering with mine. If you can do that, we can still be friends." "Friends?" Willow's eyes turned red. "George, who wants to be your friend?" I sighed softly. "All right then, let's be strangers." The wind howled around us. Willow's face went pale. I added evenly, "From now on, there's nothing left between us." Thunder rumbled in the distance, and the heavy rain began to pour from the sky. "It's raining," I said quietly. Then softly, "Willow, I'm going home." Chapter 21. I said goodbye to Aunt Lou, and just as I opened the door, I saw a familiar figure. Anna was leaning against the wall, the warm yellow light tracing a golden outline around her. She turned at the sound of the door, and when she saw me, the tension in her brow instantly eased. "What are you doing here?" I asked, walking over and taking her hand. It was a little cold. Anna's eyes lingered on our joined hands, and the corners of her lips lifted slightly. "It's raining," she said, looping her arm through mine. "I came to bring you an umbrella." The umbrella was just big enough for two. Neither of us caught a drop of rain or wind. When I opened the car door, Willow suddenly came running out. "George, don't go!" The rain had drenched her hair and dress, leaving her looking pitiful and desperate. Head bowed, she spoke in a trembling voice, full of pain and regret. "I regret it," she said, eyes fixed on me. "George, I regret it. Can you please not go?" She stepped closer, pulling a folded envelope from her bag. "A love letter," she said softly. "This is the love letter you wrote me. You did love me, didn't you?" She held the envelope out toward me, her eyes filled with desperate hope, like someone clinging to a final lifeline. "George," she whispered, "we promised to stay by each other's side forever. Did you forget?" Chapter 22. That love letter was one I had written at the beginning of our senior year in high school. I had planned to give it to Willow after the college entrance exams. But after the exams, Willow told me she was already with Makoto. So I buried that letter, and all my feelings for her, deep in the bottom drawer of my desk. It had been so many years since then that I'd completely forgotten it even existed. I never expected Willow to dig it up. The paper was yellowed with age, and now, soaked by the rain, it was nearly falling apart. I reached out and took the envelope from her. The hand linked around my arm tightened slightly. Anna's gaze was cold and wary as she stared at Willow. I patted Anna's hand, trying to soothe her unease. Then I said, "So, Willow, what exactly are you regretting? You knew I liked you back then, but you still chose to be with someone else. You were the one who broke our promise, weren't you?" Willow lowered her head, rain dripping down her hair. Her voice trembled as she said, "I'm sorry. George, I'm so sorry." I was just afraid. Willow's family had never been a happy one. Her mother was a businesswoman, her father an artist. Their love had once been passionate and intense, but when the fire burned out, the perfect couple became bitter enemies. He despised her obsession with money. She loathed his arrogance and pride. After countless arguments and shouting matches, Willow's father finally left the country and never came back. She grew up afraid that even the most beautiful love would one day turn to ashes in the fire of everyday life. That's why she thought, maybe staying friends would be better. At least as friends, George would never leave her. But now, she finally understood how terribly wrong she had been. "I'm sorry," Willow sobbed. "George, please forgive me, okay?" I gave the envelope a slight tug, and the soaked paper tore cleanly in half. Smiling faintly, I tossed it into the nearby trash bin. "No one can stand still forever," I said softly. "Willow, I don't love you anymore." With that, I took Anna's hand and turned toward the car. Willow's eyes went blank. Her legs gave out, and she half collapsed to the ground, breaking down completely in the pouring rain. For many years after that night, Willow would remain trapped in that storm, alone, drowning in her regret. Chapter 23. On the way home, Anna didn't say a word. I couldn't help feeling a little guilty. When we finally got home, I was just about to speak, had only said her name, when Anna suddenly turned and threw her arms around me. She buried her face in my chest, holding me tightly as if afraid I might disappear. I gently stroked the back of her head and asked, "Anna, are you angry?" She lifted her head and stood on tiptoe to kiss me. "No," she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of hurt. "Then, are you afraid?" I asked. Anna froze, then raised her eyes to meet mine. In that moment, I saw the unease and shadow in her gaze. Without another word, I leaned down and kissed her, feeling her trembling, the fragility beneath her calm. When the kiss finally broke, she breathed lightly and whispered, "I'm afraid." I sighed. "Afraid that I'll go soft and turn back?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I smiled. "Do you really have that little faith in me?" She shook her head. Her tone was small, almost pitiful. "It's not you I don't trust. It's myself." The way her brows drooped and her eyes shimmered, she looked just like a wounded kitten. My heart melted completely. I cupped her face in my hands and planted 2 playful kisses on her cheeks. "Now?" I asked with a grin. Anna's eyebrows arched slightly, and a spark of amusement returned to her eyes. "Are you trying to coax me?" "I'm coaxing my little kitten," I said. Her lips curved. "But the kitten thinks that's not enough." I chuckled. "Then what would be enough?" Her gaze softened, liquid with tenderness. She said, "Say you love me." Anna rested her arms on my shoulders, straddling my lap. "Say it, husband," she whispered. "Say you love me." Looking into her eyes, I said clearly, one word at a time, "Anna, I love you." She smiled and whispered back, "George, I love you too." Her last words dissolved into a deep, burning kiss. Chapter 24. We stumbled from the doorway to the couch, locked in each other's arms. Lost in the heat of our kisses, a sudden thought struck me like lightning. "Let me borrow your phone for a second," I said. Anna, without hesitation, pulled out her phone and placed it in my hand. Her eyes were soft, half-lidded, and full of lingering desire. She clearly wasn't ready to stop. "The password's your birthday," she murmured. I unlocked the phone and, in the next instant, froze. The wallpaper was a picture of me. More precisely, a photo of me from my second year of high school. That day, I had won my first ever gold medal in a music competition. It was only a small interschool event, but the honor had meant everything to me. From the angle, it looked like the photo had been taken secretly. It only showed my back. I was standing on the stage, one hand raised in celebration, the other clutching my trophy. Under the stage lights, in that frozen moment, I almost looked like I was glowing. I stared blankly at the screen, my thoughts slow to catch up. Finally, I looked up and asked, Anna, do you know why I love the stars? Anna blinked, then gave me a knowing smile. Because the first piece you performed when you won that gold medal was Starry Sky, she said. I asked quietly, Anna, have you liked me for a long time? She nodded. A very, very long time. I pressed on, unable to help myself. Since when? She smiled, a trace of nostalgia in her eyes. Probably from the moment I heard someone sawing away on a violin in that abandoned equipment room behind the school. The abandoned equipment room. And just like that, realization hit me like a bolt of thunder. Chapter 25. I was never particularly talented. Back in middle school, my violin playing was unbearable. Willow used to complain endlessly, begging me to stop torturing her ears. I was young and hot-headed then, so one day I threw my violin aside, swearing I'd never play again. But later that same night, I snuck out, picked it back up, and secretly found a quiet place where no one would hear me practice. That place was the abandoned equipment room behind the school. So it hadn't been my secret hideout after all. Realizing that, I groaned in embarrassment. Just kill me now, I muttered. Anna blinked in confusion. What's wrong? I buried my face in my hands. You saw me at my most humiliating moment. She tilted her head. Humiliating? Why? When you were struggling to hit the right note, she said softly. The way you focused so hard. You have no idea how handsome you looked. I let out an awkward laugh. Back then, I just wanted to work hard in secret so I could surprise everyone with a comeback one day. Anna smiled, her gaze warm and tender. Well, she said, I was completely dazzled long before that. Her words made my ears burn, so I quickly changed the subject. Then why did you become Willow's best friend? I asked. She replied, because I wanted to be closer to you. And that night when I got drunk, you were waiting for me on purpose, weren't you? Anna nodded. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because I was afraid you'd think I wasn't reserved enough. My heart softened completely. I sighed long and tender. Anna, what would we have done if we'd missed each other? Anna chuckled and nestled into my arms. Luckily, she whispered, we didn't. Luckily we didn't. Chapter 26. David sent me another piece of gossip. He said Willow and Makoto had broken up again. He texted, this time it's real, Willow dumped him first. Makoto tried to get her back, but she just blocked and deleted him right away. Disgusting. They were all lovey-dovey not long ago. After a pause, he sent another message. Has Willow tried to contact you again? She must regret it now. Serves her right. Over the next week, Makoto came to see me several times, mostly to ask where Willow had gone. I told him I didn't know. He looked worn out, and as he left, he gave me a bitter, sarcastic smile. Willow broke up with me, he said. She told me the only reason she agreed to date me in the first place was because I reminded her of you. George, you must feel proud beating me. Expressionless, I replied. I only care about winning competitions. As for you, you're not even worth noticing. Later, Aunt Lou told me that Willow was planning to go abroad and asked if I could meet her before she left. I refused. That night, I received a text from an unknown number. Contained only a few words. I'll wait for you. Anna was curled up in my arms watching a horror movie when the message came in. She picked up my phone, glanced at the screen, and typed a reply. Sure. We'll send you a wedding invitation when we get married. Jealous, completely jealous. Chapter 27. On the day Willow left the country, I happened to be competing in the national finals. When the results were announced and the spotlight hit me, the crowd erupted in cheers. Amid the blur of moving figures, I caught a glimpse of someone slipping quietly toward the exit. A slender, lonely silhouette that looked a lot like Willow. But I didn't go after her. Couldn't. Because at that moment, I turned to embrace the woman I loved.